The Jets and the Jaguars look ready to hire, and the Cowboys just look like a disgrace. That and more on today's edition of Locked On NFL.
The new Locked On NFL. The madman Tyler Rowland is your double shot of NFL espresso with the Locked On local experts on every major story. Get ready. Rowland is revving up. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Football fans, welcome into the Locked On NFL podcast, bringing you a double dose of the NFL's biggest stories with help from our local experts that know your favorite teams like no one else. I am your host, the madman, Tyler Rowland, joined today, as I am every Wednesday, by Locked On NFL expert, the brain, Luke Braun. On today's episode, we're going to get Luke's thoughts on the Vikings giving an extension to Kevin O'Connell in the conference championship games. We'll do some matchmaker for NFL head coach openings. We got some rumors about some deals that are about to go down that we'll discuss, but we'll try to find a perfect fit for all of the teams that still need a head coach. Before we dive into it, though, I do want to thank you for making Locked On NFL your first listen and for being an everydayer here with us at the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Luke, we're hearing through the grapevine that the Jacksonville Jaguars and the New York Jets have kind of locked in on which coaches they want. Yeah, honing in is the right way to put it. We'll talk first about the New York Jets' interest in Detroit Lions defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn. Now, I think this would be a perfect fit for the New York Jets. When I was doing my matchmaker exercise, this is the combination that I put together. But some New York Jets fans aren't as happy about the potential of hiring Aaron Glenn after his performance against with the Detroit Lions against the Washington Commanders on Saturday night. My guy John Butchko from Locked On Jets thinks that's insane.
The question a lot of Jets fans have after that game is, should Glenn be our top choice? And I'm not going to answer that question because there's a lot that goes into that. But what I will tell you is that performance should not radically make you change your mind one way or another about Aaron Glenn. You know, if you did not like Glenn, then, I don't think that game's really going to, that game really is going to do a whole lot to sway your opinion. But even if Detroit had thrown a shutout, if you did not like Glenn, I don't think it really should have changed your mind. And if you were a big Aaron Glenn fan before the game, well, I'm sorry, one game should not sway everything. One game is one game.
I agree with John there. I think, John actually went on to make great points too that I just didn't have enough time to play his full episode about the nature of overreacting to 1 week in the playoffs and what it means for these people and things like that. I think especially
John's like the only even keel person in New York Jets media. It's great.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like
that's why I love using his stuff. You could just tell that he's, and he makes a great point about overreactions in week one are very similar to overreactions basically every week. The NFL is an overreaction week to week league. That's just the way that it is. But I think Aaron Glenn would be a great fit for the Jets. And the reality is, I don't really like what's left in the hiring cycle now. I didn't think this was a very strong hiring cycle after Mike Vrabel, after Ben Johnson. I think Aaron Glenn is the strongest candidate left on the board, quite frankly, and I think he deserves an opportunity. The one thing I will say is you just went with a defensive coordinator who could not get the offense to a place where people were satisfied. Now you're bringing in another defensive coordinator without a real long-term plan at quarterback. I think Aaron Glenn's
one Woody Johnson wasn't stuck in London when they picked.
I know, right?
I mean we can be honest. We're doing the same thing, but it's Woody Johnson picked a guy, right? Yeah. Like he showed back up with the head coach already hired after he was done with the first iteration. And also Woody Johnson might be gone for another 4 years, right? Like we don't know what's going to happen there. But like that's totally Saleh got fired based on a power struggle. Like this was not a decision, but even if you agree with the merits of the decision, it does not seem like that was the Jets' process in getting rid of Saleh. So going for another guy off of the same like background of experience doesn't shock me a ton. I don't know. Yeah, I think Aaron Glenn has been angling at a chance to be a head coach for a while, which is how it goes with these defensive guys, right? They're a hot name, and they got to be a hot name for a couple of years before someone actually pulls the trigger. But I think the problems in New York are Aaron Glenn. You better have your politics on, because the problems in the New York Jets are well beyond. We don't know who our quarterback's going to be next year. It is toxic from the top down, and he better be ready to defend himself against people that do not have the head coach's best interests in mind.
And we also know that some people get shorter leashes than others. Mm-hmm. So I worry about Aaron Glenn in New York, but I know that obviously he's got to take that job if it's available to him. And I think he would be a good candidate. I just question how much better than Robert Saleh is he? I didn't think that Robert Saleh was the problem with the New York Jets last year. It was the offensive coordinator that they continued to hire. It was their quarterback. Like, I guess I just don't know. I think Robert Saleh is probably a decent coach. I don't know how much of an upgrade they're getting here. The Jets are just that kind of franchise, which we know a lot about. But moving to another.
It's the way they've always been.
Right. The Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, we're hearing reports that they are going to hire Liam Coen, who is currently the offensive coordinator of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Mm-hmm. I think that that's a good fit if you're looking to get Trevor Lawrence back on track. I guess I wonder about the leadership aspect of a young guy like Liam Coen. And my guy Tony Wiggins, who does the afternoon edition of Locked On NFL, he worried about that as well.
Tampa Bay Buccaneers offensive coordinator Liam Coen sounds like the dude that everybody believes has a real good shot at getting this job. I'll tell you this, though. Liam Coen, Julian Council told me this on the NFL show. I didn't realize it on the barbershop show. He said, the only team that's requested Liam Coen is the Jaguars. Ain't nobody else chasing Liam Coen like that. So that kind of sends me a little bit of a red flag, but I'm okay with it. I still think he needs to be one of the candidates. I don't think they're going to hire Brian Flores, like I said. Buffalo Bills offense coordinator Joe Brady. I think Joe Brady is a little green also. I'm just not. I'm not the one to sit here and want to hire a guy who's purely a play caller. I want to hire a leader.
That is the concern about the younger play callers. And look, again, I hate to do home cooking here, but I just experienced this. The Tennessee Titans get rid of a strong defensive CEO type coach, and they go with the offensive play caller, the offensive mastermind in a sense. The guy's pretty good at designing offense, but the other aspects of being a head coach maybe aren't quite up to what you want. So I think that is a concern. The problem is, who else are you going to hire right now who has more potential than a Liam Coen? Do you want Pete Carroll or Mike McCarthy or, again, Kellen Moore, Robert Saleh? Like, there just aren't a lot of great candidates out there. So if they want to hire Liam Coen, I don't think it'll work for Jacksonville, but it's not like they have a lot of better options.
I don't know if we're asking the right questions here. For the Jaguars, it's what does this franchise need right now? What does this franchise need right now? Is it that they need a stabilizing presence? That could be Pete Carroll or Mike McCarthy. He'll get 8 wins and maybe have a ceiling on it, but you'll at least get your bearings. But for me, I don't even think it's that with the Jags. For me, it's whatever is best for Trevor Lawrence is best for the Jags. It has to be about who can get the most out of Trevor Lawrence. And with Liam Coen, I look at his background, and my concern is, time in Kentucky with Will Levis.
Got Will Levis to be drafted that high, even though he was terrible in his last year in college.
After Liam Coen left. So there's feather in his cap, right?
Right.
And then you look at what he did with Baker Mayfield in Tampa, and how satisfied are you with that? I think those are the questions to ask. And if you're looking at Liam Coen as, this is the guy that's going to get our quarterback back to being somebody that we thought Trevor Lawrence was as hyped up as Caleb Williams coming out. This guy was supposed to be the next Andrew Luck. Right. As a prospect. And you got to get him back to that. You got to get back to saying, oh no, we have the best quarterback in the AFC South. Sorry, CJ. We have the best quarterback in the AFC South. That's not where the Jaguars are right now. And their head coaching hire needs to be aimed, I think, at that first and foremost. And then you start building up everything else around it as a guy like Liam Coen learns how to deal with, leadership, learns how to deal with a disgruntled player or a coach that's frustrated because his coordinator isn't listening to him. You got to learn how to deal with all that stuff on the job. There's no other way to do it. But it has to start with Trevor Lawrence in Jacksonville first and foremost.
Well, if you're looking to maximize your quarterback, I think the things you've mentioned, Will Levis in 2021 at Kentucky, Baker Mayfield this year, and I know that there's a lot of great playmakers in Tampa Bay, but you look at some of the advanced data off play action and yards per attempt, per drop back, and all the Tampa Bay Buccaneers took a massive step this year. So from that angle, Liam Coen obviously does make a ton of sense for Jacksonville, and it sounds like that's about to happen. But with that being said, some hires that look a little shaky. The Cowboys, the Raiders, it's getting ugly out there. Do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. That's $300 to keep the action going. The FanDuel app is easy to navigate. I mean, it is the best looking sportsbook app in the industry, period. They have a variety of bets to keep every game exciting. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. No waiting around for your winnings, whether you're betting on your favorite team or just looking to add some extra excitement to the playoffs. FanDuel has you covered. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $300 in bonus bets. Again, that's $300 in bonus bets at FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, Luke, let's continue today's edition of Locked On NFL, doing a little head coach matchmaker, talking about the best fits for the remaining openings. We talked about the Jets. We talked about the Jaguars because it looks like they have honed in, as Luke has said, on their candidates. Looks like Aaron Glenn going to the New York Jets, Liam Coen going to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Obviously, not 100% confirmed, but by the time that you hear this, it very well may be. So that's what it seems to be. Now, some head coach openings that don't have as much clarity, or we don't really have an ideal candidate in mind at this time. The Dallas Cowboys, the Las Vegas Raiders, the New Orleans Saints. And they're in those teams are teams that are not in a great position, whether it be the Dallas Cowboys and the media circus that they are. I'd say they're in the best position of the three teams, but the Raiders
are where they wanted to be.
Right. The Raiders
that.
have an unstable organization that doesn't have a quarterback. The Saints have a terrible cap situation with a roster that's full of older veterans who may not be enough anymore, including their quarterback, Derek Carr, may not even keep Derek Carr this year. We don't know. There's so many questions to ask. It makes it very, very difficult. But I do want to start with the Dallas Cowboys, who, like we said, probably the strongest situation of the three that we just mentioned. But still, you have to deal with the Jerry Jones aspect. And, you know, they have immediate expectations in Dallas. There is no runway. They are expecting to win and win right away. And that's why it makes it very, very perplexing why Brian Schottenheimer is currently the leader in the clubhouse for the Dallas Cowboys head coaching position. And look, my guys at Locked On Cowboys, they seem a little skeptical of that as well.
I've got a lot of different thoughts here. So my first thought when I saw that he was in an interview was I wasn't surprised, right? It does seem like he's somebody that is very well liked in the building. We know that Dak Prescott is a big fan of him. So it doesn't hurt to interview him just to see what ideas he has.
Yeah.
My next thought, this is where it gets a little harder, is to me, hiring Brian Schottenheimer would almost feel like a placeholder. Now, whether that's a placeholder until Bill Belichick wants to come back into the NFL next year, whether that's a placeholder until Jason Witten is ready to potentially be the next head coach, or just to wait until another cycle to see which coaches would be available. And I feel bad for saying that because I wish this would work out for Schottenheimer. I wish it would be awesome if he was the next great coach for the Dallas Cowboys, but it doesn't necessarily feel like that's what's going on. Like I don't feel like they absolutely love him. To me, it feels like he's a fallback option if they can't land a Kellen Moore or a Deion Sanders.
Look, the Cowboys got caught with their pants down here. That's what happened. I think they thought that they would have a better candidate right away. And the reality is, if they hire Brian Schottenheimer, who was their offensive coordinator this year, it's not like they're hiring somebody new from outside. They're downgrading. There is no way you can tell me that Brian Schottenheimer is a better head coach than Super Bowl winning Mike McCarthy. I refuse. Mike McCarthy is so underrated at this point in the process. He is an average, steady, standard NFL head coach at this moment in time, right in the middle of the pack. He's not a bad coach. He's not a great coach either, but this would be, again, I think the Cowboys got caught with their pants down. They thought that they were going to hire Deion Sanders in a fever dream and then realized that he's just using them to get more money out of Colorado. I think that they are screwed. They've made a massive mistake, and they're going to be wishing that they would have kept Mike McCarthy around, and Brian Schottenheimer would be wishing that he didn't take the job if that's ultimately who they hire.
I don't quite understand the vision, and I don't know if Jerry Jones has like a long-term vision or if he just is looking to do something Cowboys and flashy. That's what he's always been trying to do. Yeah, flash. Like, style over substance has been a problem for the Cowboys for a long time. I don't even think I'm on like controversial ground there. And that feels like what it means to go after somebody like Deion Sanders and pull him away from coaching his kids and probably pay him a whole bunch of money. And he's probably, just going to use it to get more money from Colorado because college coaches make more than NFL coaches. To just promote from within after getting rid of Mike McCarthy, it raises the question, are you satisfied with what is happening in Dallas or not? Because if you aren't satisfied, okay, getting rid of Mike McCarthy, we want to change. Okay, I can at least understand it, even though I'm with you on McCarthy. I think he is underrated. I think he gets too much flack for fourth down decisions that are wrong, but that's not what head coaching is. Like, things happen all week long. It's not just the decisions you make in 2-minute drills. But if you're just promoting from within and you are prioritizing continuity, why? Why not bring in a whole different guy and get a whole new staff? And is this an era of change for the Cowboys or not? And if you are satisfied enough to keep your staff in place, but just not Mike McCarthy, it just kind of looks like you're looking to make it. You're more concerned with the perception that you're doing something about the problems than actually doing something about the problems, which, again, Jerry Jones, I ain't putting that past him.
Right. Exactly that. I mean, you're barking up the tree that everybody thinks is going on right now. Is he just wanted to make a move to make a move and Jerry Jones has said publicly that he likes to just keep the Cowboys in the news. Like, that's just part of the experience. To me, if you hire Brian Schottenheimer, this is like divorcing your wife because you don't like the in-laws and then marrying her little sister. Like, it just does not make any sense whatsoever to do that. I just don't understand how that could happen. But Beautiful. Anyways,
fantastic stuff.
Let that be the period on the conversation about the Dallas Cowboys. What a joke right now. If they don't hire Kellen Moore or Deion Sanders, I mean, what a disaster. That's all there is to that. But looking at the other two teams that we haven't quite discussed yet, the Raiders and the Saints. I guess for the Raiders, I'll give them Pete Carroll. They need some stability there. They need somebody who knows what they're doing with how lowly the situation is for Vegas right now. You need a program builder. And of course, the question could become, can Pete Carroll successfully build the programs that he's built elsewhere at his current age? Like, does he have the energy and the time to do something like that? But I don't really have a great answer for the Raiders, and it makes sense that Ben Johnson spurned them for Chicago. They don't have a quarterback. They don't have a roster. The franchise has been unstable for forever. I might say that about
Chicago too, but sorry.
True. At least they have a quarterback. Okay, I know we could talk about that, but come on, hater. Guy who hyped up Sam Darnold all year. All right, listen, we don't need that.
Future Tennessee Titan Sam Darnold. That's right.
Oh my God. Yeah. Well, we'll discuss.
We're getting off the rails.
It probably
the Raiders are in a dark enough place.
A good fit for the Raiders, I guess. Do you have one in mind?
Someone who doesn't mind having this job for 2 years and then getting fired because they're in such a terrible rebuild that there's no reasonable way to put expectations on a head coach. If you want to bring in somebody like, I don't even hate Mike McCarthy for this Raiders job, or Carroll, or I put Robert Saleh, somebody with head coach experience, somebody with that has a very clear strength. Like, when you're building from the ground up, I think you have to decide, okay, what is our strength? And let's start there. Whether you're picking trenches or whether you're going for quarterback and scheme lord stuff, like whatever it is, figure out what your vision is, start there, and then kind of try to flesh out everything else around it. And for the Raiders, the problem is you bring in a head coach, that guy's not going to be expected to win more than 5 games year one, and maybe not even year 2. But by year 3, people's patience starts wearing thin, and you go, wait, is this guy even good? And then suddenly you're in your first year as a coach with a real roster, and you have to make the playoffs. And unless you Dan Campbell this, it's so hard to survive a rebuild. So yeah, I don't know. It's who's this year's Dave Canales? Like that's the seat's going to get hot before your team is good, and you kind of have to be all right with doing that. So I don't know if any of these established guys want this job. It's a tough place to be. As a GM, kind of an interesting job because you could just get to build things with your own vision. You have no contracts to shed. You have all the flexibility and freedom in the world, and you have a high draft pick, 6th overall, but you got to figure out what you're doing at quarterback. And that's probably what this comes down to is whose quarterback plan does Mark Davis like?
I'll tell you, whoever takes that job, you are chopped liver, son. And here's why. Because number one, they fired the general manager because they thought that they were hiring Ben Johnson. I mean, that has been reported that the Raiders were shocked. They thought they had Ben Johnson. They were going to hire Ben Johnson's choice of general managers. So not only are you going in there knowing that you were the second choice, but you know that whatever general manager that they pick for you, they didn't even want that guy either because they wanted their new coach to pick the general manager, and it just totally fell apart. I don't really have anything to say for the Saints. It's another situation like the Raiders. Why would you ever take that job? They're in cap hell. They have a bunch of older veterans they're paying too much money to, including Derek Carr. You're never winning anything with Derek Carr. And they're an organization that thinks that they should be winning right now. Like, I guess we keep doing it. Mike McCarthy, because where does he go? He seems like he deserves an opportunity to stay coaching in the NFL, but none of these openings make a ton of sense to me for him. Because, again, he's just going to be scapegoated again. I don't really have a good answer. There aren't a lot of good coaches in this cycle.
You can go get,
I guess.
Be a god. Hey,
route.
I have some breaking news. Do you want it now or do you want it later?
It's Josh McDaniels going to the Patriots, and poor Drake May. I feel so bad. We'll squeeze it in here. Mike Vrabel has never dealt with a young quarterback in his entire career. They made Malik Willis look like a USFL player, and as soon as he went to the Packers, he looked like a really, really solid backup. Mike Vrabel with a young quarterback, adding in Josh McDaniels, who has never proven a single thing in his entire career when he hasn't been sucking on the teat of Tom Brady. Like, Drake May is so screwed. I feel so bad for him.
I'm not going to go that far. I think Josh McDaniels as an OC can work. I think as a head coach, he's a disaster. But if you just like sequester him to the booth and say, hey, man, just like draw plays, I think that can work out okay.
If you can find where Josh McDaniels as an OC created a good offense outside of Tom Brady, I'll listen. But you're probably going to say
most of his career was Tom Brady.
Exactly. Like,
but he was only a head coach everywhere else. And he's so bad head coach, good OC, or
disaster.
Or Tom Brady.
It's fair to wonder. It's fair to
Tom
wonder.
Brady merchant.
Right.
But enough about getting scheme lords into head coaching jobs they're not ready for. Sorry, I'm a hater. Man. Sorry. I'll stop.
Anyways, we move right along. It's time to put Luke in the hot seat. The Vikings make a move, and we got these conference championship games coming up this weekend. It's Locked On NFL, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Talkspace. Therapy is a game changer. It can help manage stress, improve sleep, communicate more effectively, but finding the right therapist and fitting sessions into a busy schedule can be a challenge. That's where Talkspace comes in. Talkspace, the leading virtual therapy provider, makes getting help that you need easy, accessible, and affordable. With Talkspace, signing up is simple. You can match with a licensed therapist who fits your needs, usually within 48 hours. It's a convenient. You can have sessions from the comfort of your home and even message your therapist between appointments. Plus, Talkspace is covered by many insurance plans, and for most insured members, there's a $0 copay. It's never been easier to prioritize your mental health. I love Talkspace. Had a great experience with them. As a listener of this podcast, you're going to get $80 off your first month with Talkspace when you go to Talkspace.com/LockedOnNFL and use the promo code SPACE80. To match with a licensed therapist today, go to Talkspace.com/LockedOnNFL. Use the promo code SPACE80 to get $80 off your first month and show your support for the show. That's Talkspace.com/LockedOnNFL. Promo code SPACE80. All right, Luke, let's cap off today's edition of the Locked On NFL podcast. did a little matchmaker with some of these open head coaching positions, some of them that we think might be filled by the time you hear this. Quite honestly, it's coming down the pipe right now, ladies and gentlemen. But I think we have a good read on who's going where, especially in that first segment, to give you some good analysis on when those moves happen. But do want to look forward now. Going to look at the conference championship games as I've been doing all week. I want to get, each host from each day. I want to get their take on the conference championship games. But the Minnesota Vikings are in the news, and I would be a fool to not flex Luke Braun's mental muscle. He is the brain.
Oh boy.
After all, Luke, we saw Kevin O'Connell get a multi-year extension with the Minnesota Vikings. I think it's a brilliant move. I would imagine you feel the same.
Yeah, if you want to be a prognosticator in NFL media, there are two tickets that will always bear out for you. One is that the coaching contract is never a problem, and two, rookie contracts are never a problem. You will hit like 999 times out of 1,000 on those two principles, and this is another case of that. There was some consternation drummed up by a report Jay Glazer dropped on Sunday, the Sunday right before they played Week 18 against the Lions. Said, teams are trying to trade for him or something like that. It was a pretty obvious move to try to, up his hype, right? Up the contract value, make it seem like there's all these voices clamoring for him so he can go demand a bigger number.
Agent tweet.
We've seen those agent reports a million times before.
Right.
But Mike Florio decided to run with it for a long time, and then people started to, oh no, is there tension in the organization? And it turns out no, they got it done pretty much immediately. Took a couple years or a couple of weeks to flesh out the contract after O'Connell's coaching duties were done. Got to type up all the legalese. That takes a little bit of time, and then it's done. It's never going to be a thing, never was going to be a thing, and it turned out not to be a thing. Hope you didn't believe it was a thing.
And this is the expertise that you get from Luke Braun. But moving forward, let's keep this expert train going. Luke, again, I'm asking everybody this week. I give my takes every day. Want to get yours. Looking forward to these conference championship games. Who do you think wins and why?
I think I got to go chalk in the NFC. I got to take Philly. I would love to see the Commanders. I am so endeared by the Commanders. I think the Commanders are so cool. I don't hate Philly by any stretch of the imagination. I think they'd be a perfectly fun Super Bowl participant, but it'd be so fun to see the Jaden Daniels keep doing what he's doing after what they did for the Lions too. Hey, what are you going to do? Go on the road and pull an upset? It's not like they can do that, right? They've done two of those in a row, beating the 3 seed and the 1 seed. Why don't we take the 2? So that would be very, very fun to me, but I don't trust the defense. It's not about Jaden Daniels at all. I just do not trust that Commanders defense. They did a good job of being opportunistic when Jared Goff was on an off night and taking advantage of, they didn't have to have the best day, right? The offense scored 45 for them.
Yep.
I don't see Jaden Daniels coming into Philly and doing that against a much healthier and more complete version of that defense.
30 on him like a month ago, though.
Yeah, not 45 though. And so, that it's hard to beat somebody in the third game. And, they're 1-1 now. On the other side, it's much more interesting. I do see the upset. I do see the Bills going into Kansas City. It's not the same Chiefs. The Bills were the only team that could beat Kansas City before. So let's pop in and do it. I think that the Bills have the kind of solid backbone in their running game, and we saw that very much in the cold conditions against Baltimore. What they can do with James Cook, and in particular up front, they were pushing Ravens around all day long. The trenches are everything, and the Bills have the kind of trenches that can prevent a game like what George Karlaftis did to the Texans. I think they can take that D-line. I think they can take up that challenge. So I'm going Bills Eagles, but I'm not all that confident in either of those predictions.
Yeah, it feels like it could go either way. I think Jalen Hurts' mobility this week could really impact the Eagles' offense. And if the Eagles aren't able to put up a good offensive showing, just by default, the Commanders could find a way to score more points. And, I agree with you on Buffalo, and this feels like the year for Buffalo, but
it really does.
Man, they have a history of losing 4 straight consecutive important playoff games. So I'm not.
You had to bring it up.
Yeah,
I was going to be nice. I wasn't going to do it.
I'm going to keep bringing it up because why not? But misery loves company. As a Titans fan,
I can't do that to the 0-4 brethren. Okay, that's Vikings fans and Bills fans have been cousins for a long time. I got to be nice.
Right. together in your misery there. I get it.
Yeah,
I get
right.
it. I get it. But with that being said, okay, great. Glad to get that on wax. You're the first person between Louie and Lauren and me to pick Buffalo. So
really, everybody's going Chiefs. Okay.
Yeah,
well,
everybody's
should
because
I
it's
put on
Patrick
the
Mahomes
wolf hat
until it
and
isn't.
howl like it's NFL Network?
Yep, exactly. You're the one guy, so you'll get to take all the credit if they ultimately pull off the upset. But that's going to do it for me today. Tomorrow, have Michelle Majuk, the Data Queen, on. We're diving head first into these football games. So excited for the games this weekend. That's going to do it for me today, though, folks. I am your host, the mastermind, Ross Jackson is the mastermind. I'm stealing his nickname here. The madman, Tyler Rowland, and the brain, Luke Braun. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Get subscribed, stay subscribed, and of course, stay safe out there.